school, did you ever feel like you were kind of treated differently because people knew you were a foreigner?
Yes. And like sometimes it's like good and sometimes it's bad, because you could definitely tell that like some people wanted to be your friend because you were the foreigner, which, that's nice, but like obviously like kind of like the superficial thing. And then you felt like a lot of times like I knew teachers would treat me differently, and I could tell that I could get away with stuff that some of the other students would not be able to get away with, which is good or bad depending on how you want to look at it. If you want to look at it like you're being treated above the other students, that's kind of bad. But I mean, if you want to look at it like you're kind of like special, then I guess it's kind of good for you. I don't really know. And then there are just weird things, like the guys in the kendo club would never speak to me. It was so weird. Like even when they knew I could speak Japanese, instead of like speak to me, they would like gesture to like tell me what I should be doing. It was weird. And then like I had in April when the new school year started and the first years came, I had a group of like 3 girls in the first year class that adored me. It was so weird. Like they were my fans. It was weird.
Fans.
Yeah, but I think overall, like, they'll be really nice to you. I think that's like the main how you're treated differently. It's not like you're treated worse. It's like you're treated more kindly than others. 'Cause, like, I would have teachers that were known for being like kind of mean and like people didn't like, but that teacher would be nice to me, and he gave me like a gift before I left. It's like a small like card thing, but it was nice. There's a bit of that.
Do you think you were kind of, I don't know the phrase in English. Can I say this in Japanese?
Yeah.
Okay. なんか舐められた感じした?
Kind of, yeah.
What did she say? I don't speak Japanese. If you can translate, if you can't, don't worry.
Like kind of like I was underestimated, or like they tried to like like treat me kindly. Yeah, a bit, especially like I was talking about the guys in the kendo club that would like just gesture to me, or they would like treat me like extra kindly. Like they wouldn't like go all out like some of the other girls. They would all be like really like weak with their hits. It was kind of weird. And I think especially they weren't expecting me to like do well on tests when I got there, and then I ended up like beating like everyone. Like so after that I wasn't really treated like I wasn't gonna be as smart, or like I was gonna be worse in grades. I think at the beginning I definitely was, especially because when I first got there I wasn't really speaking Japanese that well.
How did you talk to your host family or communicate with your host family when you had any like troubles at school, or just anything in general where you just had to vent?
I guess I honestly didn't have any troubles at like all. Like so at the end of like the school year, my school asked me, because they're hosting this another student next year, like what troubles did you have like throughout your entire year, and I couldn't think of anything. So they asked my host family too, and they couldn't think of anything. But I guess like me wanting to go hang out with my friends, I would just ask like, hey, on this day can I go hang out with this person, and they'd be like, sure. Usually, unless there was like some reason I couldn't, or they were very nice, like telling me if there was something that if I needed to like skip club on Saturday morning so that we could go do something, then they would just straight up tell me. So I think straightforward communication is the best, especially because there's kind of a language barrier, so like the nuances kind of get lost sometimes.
Were your host family, were they able to speak English?
So my host sister and my host brother actually went to an international like preschool, so they had been like studying English since they were like 4 or 5. My host sister is like me, who understands English but couldn't speak English, like how I first was when I got to Japan. And then my host brother is kind of like that too, where he'll understand English but he will never speak English to you. But like I said, I could understand Japanese and I wanted to make the effort to speak, so we always spoke in Japanese. My host mom spoke very, very little English. My host mom's older sister lives in Vermont, so is married to like an American guy. So through that, she kind of knows English a bit. My host mom, my host dad did not at all. 0 English.
So they never really tried to speak English with you? Just all Japanese?
Yeah, it was all Japanese. Near the end, so my host sister joined that foreign language class at my school, and they go to Canada for 3 months as like a study abroad. So like at the end of it, my host sister really wanted to study her English, so she was, we were like talking in English at night, just like, like conversing, trying to like practice, but it's mostly Japanese.
So what was the most difficult thing you experienced while studying abroad?
I think the most difficult thing was kind of communication, or like just feeling like it was hard to like even talk to people because, honestly, I'm a shy person. I've said this multiple times. And, it was kind of hard for me to like approach people and like talk or even like participate in conversations. Like I have a terrible habit of just zoning out all the time. So like if I was in a Japanese conversation and there's like me and maybe like 3 other native speakers, I would always end up just zoning out and thinking about something else entirely. So I had like a hard time participating in like conversations in that regard. And I think that was hard. And it kind of made me feel like, kind of lonely because I didn't have like, it was easy for me to get to like know people as easily as it was in America. I guess that was probably the hardest thing.
What classes did you take for your school?
So I was in 3 different classes. So I was in my hostess's class for the first 3 months, and then when the second year foreign language class got back from Canada, I joined their class, and then when the classes switched, I joined the oncoming second year foreign language class. In my first year class, I didn't end up getting like any credit for any classes I took, but I took as a first year chemistry, Japanese, classical Japanese, English. I have 3 different types of English at my school. World history, Japanese history, which I already said I just ignored basically. And then they had 2 different math classes, so math 1 and math A.
What's math A?
It's like, so math 1 was a lot of like algebra 2 kind of stuff, where it was like parabolas and like, solving like, they did trigonometry in math 1. And then math A, what did I do in math A? It was like statistics, which was weird because where I go to school here, like we don't incorporate statistics unless it's like statistics class. So it was weird because it was stuff I didn't know. And then we did like geometry, like a bunch of geometry that I had forgotten. I don't really know what the point of like separating them is, but yeah, there were 2 different math classes. And then when I was in a second year in the foreign language class, I took English. Being in the foreign language class, of course, the foreign language is English. There were days where I would have English 3 out of 6 periods.
And was it like super easy, like I have a pen or this is an apple?
It was very much, sometimes I did like reading passages to study for like tests, which is kind of more difficult, and or like having to like translate English into Japanese is more difficult. But a lot of it was like explaining like gerunds, like ing, and how many like different forms that was. And that would be the grammar class. Then they had communication, which is a lot like so they had English expression, which is pretty much just like grammar, like this is this grammar, here are questions about this grammar. Then there was English communication, which is like reading passages and then learning the grammar from those passages. And then because I went to a private school, there was English conversation, which was taught by, they had 2 different teachers. One was from America and one was from England. And that's just like them like trying to get people to speak English to each other and like just standing up in front of the class and speaking English. I actually had kind of like a fun time in English conversation classes because my English teacher would talk about stuff, like especially my American English teacher would talk about stuff that I knew no one else in the class understood, but he would be up there like talking about it and I would find it interesting. So it wasn't too bad. So there would be English, and it's kind of nice, especially when you're like listening to like Japanese all day, to have like, like the really easy English class. I took a bunch of English, and then you could choose between world history and Japanese history as a second year in the foreign language class. I, of course, chose world history, and then Japanese classics, math 2. They only did math 2. And then biology and earth science. And I think that's all. And I think I did health both years, but health is, health. It's not much of an issue. And then you would take PE both years.
So you took like the basic 5 subjects: Japanese, world history, science, and math, and then English.
Yes.
And then, did you take any extracurricular stuff like art, music?
So my school doesn't have extracurriculars. There were no classes you could choose. So for, like kind of like their art credit, they had a music class and you would take once a week. It was just everyone like singing. It's kind of sad because our teacher was like super talented, and then she was here like teaching like a bunch of students that didn't want to be singing, like forcing them to like sing in front of people. But but yeah, so we took music. It was kind of fun. I always took like visual art, or I took string band in middle school. So I never got like like the whole like singing thing. It was very much like my elementary school music classes. That was interesting, kind of fun. But